Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon and Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultants Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultants Way podcast. Anthony Paluska and Dean McMahon. How are you, Dean?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. It's a really fun day and a really great conversation. And as you and I've talked, we're now in the summertime here, and your house is kept at 48 degrees, so you have to wear a sweater.
That's right. It is always the opposite. My attire is always the opposite of the outdoor weather because we adjust the in-home temperature way overcorrect for it.
Aggressively.
Way overcorrect for it. So yes, but that's all fun.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about electricity bills.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. So conversation today with Kristen Rosenberry. Great chat. So you mentioned this as soon as we actually got done recording with her. Kristen's attitude and approach towards PS operations, and she'll explain her background and her history is unique, and in a very positive way, right? She views her role and she thinks about it because, and I think this is a combination of both just her personality, but also kind of her background in spending time on the commercial side and the go-to-market side and understanding, kind of really thinking through the psychology of what each of the different teams need in order to be successful, and not just applying a purely operational lens to it, but instead saying, hey, what are some things we're going to put in place that are actually going to work and drive the behavior change that we want across the organization. And I think she'll tell a great success story of the work that she's been doing right now. I think that's a testament to kind of all of those things I just talked about, right? Her personality and demeanor and background. So
Yeah, and as she's, if you will, and we'll hear about this, but as she simplified things so that they could integrate with a broader sales force, because she went through an acquisition, a much bigger sales force. The other thing that she immediately dealt with, and you asked some great questions about it, which is that means PS needs to be more commercial, because whatever the client thought they bought then or understood or didn't understand, there's more opportunity for them. There's more discovery of problems they have. And we have to be adroit at first. And she talks about how they do it stage one, but eventually we all need to understand how the business works and makes money. So it's a very exciting talk.
yeah, it's one of the topics we've been engaged in recently the most, right? As organizations that we're talking to or reach out to us or we're talking to them, that whether you're trying to make your PS business a huge revenue or margin generator for your business or not, almost everybody is on this journey of doing one of two things, and Kristen was dealing with both. One is get our business to at least cost neutral or slightly profitable. And so that requires us to be more commercially minded, commercially focused, because a lot of the growth can come from finding opportunities when we're out there delivering, and the simplification of our portfolio down to a handful of key items and productizing a lot of what we offer also puts more burden after the fact on the PS team to find opportunities and bring in the right resources to continue to expand and manage scope appropriately, because we didn't have all of the front end discovery and custom scoping to get everything in the contract up front. And so working the commercial role that the PS and the consulting team has is one of the biggest and hottest topics right now. And it's occurring for a variety of reasons. And it's not only because organizations are trying to, make their PS business, a huge revenue and profit driver for them. It's a lot of other things that are forcing their team to have to think about their role a lot differently, and then therefore be enabled differently. So no, I think this is a great conversation on on the drivers of some of that change, and then Kristen's explanation of how she approached the process to get her team to not just adopt these new things but buy into it really quickly and see some results. I think a lot of people could take a bunch of stuff away from that. So um, with that, we'll have the conversation with us and Kristen start right now. Hey, Kristen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Excited to talk to you today. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Hey, we will have introduced you a little bit on the front end here, but before we dive into all the great things we're going to talk about, can you give the audience a bit of an intro and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Kristen Rosenberry. I am currently the Senior Manager of Strategy and Program Management Operations over the Professional Services Organization at MoveWorks by ServiceNow. I have been in the operations space for the last 10 years, I think now. So, yeah, just been in tech, been in startups, been in large corporations, back, from a startup acquired by a big corporation now. So, a lot of different experience. I am a builder by nature and just a true operator in many regards. So.
Well, the first thing I liked was your title had 18 words in it. So that's, we don't use cards much anymore, but I can imagine a card with your title going back.
It's long. It's really long. So it's been.
Well, maybe you get paid by the letter in your title. That'd be great, right?
That would be great. We should.
Yeah,
I
I'll
should
send a
really
note in. I'll send a
Yeah.
note in. See if we can get that fixed.
Good. Well, can you explain a little bit more about what that title has you doing these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am supporting our professional services organization within MoveWorks. And so the way that looks today is, once a sale happens, the sales team goes out, they do their thing. That then comes to our professional services team in some cases, depending if they've purchased services or not. And we are responsible for implementing, expanding, and creating value via adoption within the MoveWorks product. And so I support the really smart people who actually technically configure and implement the platform.
And you mentioned the recent acquisition and the integration of the two businesses. How's that going so far?
Going really well. Part of the reason that I wanted to join MoveWorks was because I knew that there was a pending acquisition. And from an operating standpoint, I wanted to see kind of how the sausage was made and what that might look like with an acquisition of that size. And so it was an exciting opportunity for me to get to understand fully what integrating into a larger company would look like, as I just hadn't done it before. And I like a challenge. So it's been really smooth. We've had a lot of learnings have come out of this, and ServiceNow continues to acquire new companies. So they've already made 2 more, I believe, acquisitions since we joined. And so those are exciting and in flight, but we kind of got to do it first. So we've got to kind of build the pathway for other acquisitions.
So specifically from the PS, the services side of things, what is the integration pathway actually start to look like? Is it, build a net new model that works for both of you? Is it adopt their existing model? Is it some keep
Ignore
your own
them.
but integrate
Don't
it?
answer their email. Don't respond.
For sure. Ignore them. Don't answer their emails ever. No. It's been really good. So we've actually maintained our own independent business unit entirely from the rest of ServiceNow as of right now. So from a professional services standpoint, we're adopting some of their, like their standard legal language and their standard, T&E modeling and all of that kind of stuff. So kind of the back of the house things are really on that front the same. If you look at MoveWorks professional services versus the ServiceNow expert services team. But operationally, we came in and we built a net new catalog of SKUs to help fit better into the portfolio that already existed. But we also took majority of our normal standard quote unquote operating model has come with us outside of the actual go to market motion. So we're adopting a little bit of what they're doing, but the platforms are just vastly different. Implementing ServiceNow versus implementing MoveWorks, not not comparable in the slightest. Um, so we're trying to kind of come up with a hybrid as we go. So we're kind of building the plane while we're flying it.
Always, right? That's what it's all about, right?
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, yeah. So you rolled out a bunch of new SKUs. Did you do that prior to the acquisition, and then that's why you wanted to make sure you stuck with those, or is that something that occurred as part of the whole process?
Yeah. So we had started down the path of minimizing our SKUs and minimizing our catalog in general prior to the acquisition. Obviously, knowing it's pending, you never really know when it's going to close or like when it's going to actually happen. So we had started that prep work. Ultimately, though, when we got into the ServiceNow ecosystem, we determined, previously we had a whole bunch of like time and material options and offerings, and we had a lot of different like recurring services that we did. Um, and that those did not fit as cleanly into the ServiceNow um, catalog as we would have liked. And so what we ended up doing was taking kind of a hybrid of what we had started building against, and then we fit it more into the ServiceNow model, which is going towards fixed fee services. So we went from having 25, I think, different offerings and SKUs and custom SOW work and all of this down to 7. So the team was a little hard to pull along initially. It was a bit of a
The
sell.
PS delivery team or the sales
Yes.
organization?
But both actually,
Yeah.
honestly. Because they were just so used to doing things the same way, right? They're like, what do you mean I can't just sell 500 hours at some certain cost with an SOW? And I was like, well, we don't have an SOW anymore. We're rolling off of these services descriptions. And um, the reason we ultimately went that direction was because it's extremely scalable when you look at the go to market motion and what salespeople are used to, right? Like they need something super simple to sell. They want to know exactly what you get and what are the outcomes that we expect to happen outside of, out of this engagement. And let me slap this SKU on there that's a fixed fee price and keep it moving. And so understanding that we were coming, from a much smaller company of, I think we were 600, between 5 and 600 people total in MoveWorks, coming into a 30,000 person organization. And specifically the sales org alone is a couple thousand people. Um, Understanding that I wanted to create something that was super simple because we moved fast when we got in the door. So we really had to think more strategically about how we position the MoveWorks services alongside of the existing expert services. And so, obviously, coming in brand new, the ServiceNow expert services team is not enabled on, managing all the different MoveWorks components. And so until we got to that enablement point into a more stable place, they needed to remain separate. So we're really now able to just pop a SKU on and say, hey, based on the integrations that this customer wants, they fit into this tier. And now we sell it alongside their other ServiceNow services if those are being purchased. So
Yeah, we're real big fans of fixed fee, and for all the reasons that margin can be better and everything. But when you enter a fixed fee that you didn't get to do a lot of analysis and get to know them all, do you guys are you working on a model to update the client that what they actually want once we've engaged with them was different what they said during the sales cycle or what they understood during the sales cycle?
yeah. And that I mean, honestly, you can run into that too sometimes, even if you're doing a custom SOW. We find that a lot specifically with our product because I think a lot of people see the demo and they're like, wow, this is amazing. We want the full feature. We want everything that you showed us. And then they get into it and they realize oh, wait, but it can do all of this other stuff too. Like we only got, you just got the tip of the iceberg with your demo. And so we actually find that it's more so adding scope and adding scope creep, if you will, to all of that, regardless, just because they don't realize how powerful the MoveWorks platform is. And so with that being said, I think the fixed fee makes it easier because we built when I built this out with our legal team, we built the guardrails, right? So do we think we're going to stick to those every single time? Maybe not. There might be some wiggle room here and there, but we at least have the guardrails to go back to that services description that the customer signed and say, hey, this is the number of integrations that you purchased. If you want to add more integrations, if you want to add more custom agent building, if you want to do this, we actually have a separate bucket of hours that you can purchase, also fixed fee. We'll scope out the additional, from your implementation, we'll scope out the additional hours, and then we'll move it ahead and we'll just continue that implementation. We'll close it out, take the implementation manager off, leaving a forward deployed engineer on the account, on the engagement, and let them finish it out, basically, if they want to continue to add after the initial guardrailed implementation is set. So that's how we're managing today.
Yeah, two things I love about that. One is we made it easy to buy, right? Made it easy to buy. And we're not kidding ourselves that we're accurate, right? So now you've seen more, you want more, or you're more complex. And we have a methodology for upselling, which is natural in a move. And as long as our people know how to warn the client early and say, hey, here's how we do this, then I like those two things working together.
Yeah. And it was a lot of sales enablement to do it. It was mostly sales enablement, honestly, from a go-to-market perspective, where I think in a more custom SOW space or in a T&M space, you're going to be doing custom scope work, and that requires somebody on the technical side of the house to be in those initial conversations. So your volume is potentially lower when you're doing these very highly customized scoped work. And obviously knowing we were coming into a very large customer base and our potential is going to, expand exponentially, we wanted to make sure that we were ready for a true go-to-market motion that would support our business, help us grow, and not be too complex for the sales org. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's some sales enablement on the front end, but I found that with things like this, and maybe you've seen the same thing, the sales team adopts really quickly okay, you've given me this, and these are my options, and I understand the outcomes that come with each of these options and when they get applied and what customer type and segment and what combination of things they're buying. Like I know that I'm only choosing between one or two things, and it's quick and it's efficient versus the custom scope version of it. The delivery team feels better about because they get to touch and feel it and get to know the client a little bit and make sure that they're confident by the time they receive it. And the other approach, right, that where the sales team's selling it without a lot of their involvement, they feel more at risk of, well, they're going to throw something over the fence that we're just not ready to deliver. It's not sold appropriately or whatever the case may be. But in those custom engagements, what happens is we take too long to respond or we get capacity constrained. And because that, the sales team says, PS is slowing down our deal. We're not going to include them. We're just going to do something without them. And so the sales team has to go through this little bump of enablement, right? And I mean, not minimizing it, but once they get to the other side, they love the new approach. Have you seen the same thing with
yeah,
the sales org? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, to your point, the deal velocity is really important to salespeople, to sales leaders, right? And it's like if we're getting brought in at the 11th hour, we're ready to book a deal, and we're telling you, well, we're about to add an SOW that's going to require signature to get this deal closed. Salespeople don't love that. They're like, what do you mean? What? No, we're not doing that. So this has absolutely simplified and allowed us to scale pretty quickly, but it has been a big change for our team specifically. The sales team, the solutions engineering teams, they've been so used to just pulling in one of our PS leaders and allowing them to come and run some of these conversations. And from that, you have to realize the volume now of deals coming in, there's just no way. We are a super lean professional services team. And so it's been a big shift for our team specifically, the MoveWorks team within the broader org, because now you have, a ServiceNow account executive working with a MoveWorks account executive, and the MoveWorks account exec's first thing is like, let me pull in my PS leader, or let me pull in somebody to help talk through some of the services pieces, and they're no longer doing that. So it's really been, again, it's like building habits and making sure that you're selling up front. And so we've done a lot of that enablement on the services side, just saying, hey, here's what you sell, here's when you sell it, this is what's going to bring them the most value the quickest. If they want a really quick implementation, you sell them a tier 1. We're going to set up the very basics and you keep it moving. And they really cling to that, to your point. So I feel like we're finally getting to a point now. We're about 4 months in from when we launched the new catalog of SKUs. And I feel like we're really starting to hit some good speed and understanding now. And I think that's pretty good.
That's great. From a timing? Oh my gosh, that's so fast. Yeah.
Very fast.
Oh,
Congratulations.
that's great.
Yeah.
And in this scenario, right? This only increases over time as people get more and more comfortable with it, and the sales team's doing more of these things. A little bit more of the commercial responsibility after the sale falls on the services team. So their delivery methodologies and their approach and what they're looking for and how they talk to the client does have to change a little bit, because they're not able to come in on the front end, as you and Dean were talking about a second ago, and help define the scope. They're now responsible on the back end for managing scope creep and pushing back and saying no in a way that still keeps the client motivated and knows how to bring that in. Have you all had to work through that enablement as well, of some of the commercial mindset that's a lot different for our delivery team?
Yes, absolutely.
How's that gone? Because sometimes our PS people are not ready to be commercially minded.
That is correct. So it's been a big shift for them specifically. And I think, again, it's like kind of pulling everyone along a bit, right? We can give them the information, but until you're really comfortable and confident in having those type of conversations during your implementation, like it gets a little tricky. So what we've done in this regard is we do have like an implementation manager that runs the initial implementation. We have a forward deployed engineer who is the technical configuration arm of that implementation. And then we also have our implementation manager also aligned to those accounts. And so we're leaning on the managers and leaders in our org to go and have those conversations if they need to be had. So far, a lot of our customers actually are, especially our repeat customers, like our existing customers, our legacy MoveWorks customers that have come over, they're like, oh, this is so much easier. I don't have to like think about what I need, because you're telling me exactly what I need and it falls into this bucket. And so now look, I can look at this and say, this is what I need, and we're aligned. So a lot of it, I think, has also simplified for customers. So I don't think we're actually having as much friction, because it does seem like we've built it in a way that makes the customer really comfortable. Like something that I was talking with our legal team about was, we haven't had a single customer come back and redline anything in our services description. And that is not normal. That was never normal in previous MoveWorks. And it sounds like it's not maybe the norm within ServiceNow either. And so they're impressed that it's working as well as it is. I'm impressed that it's working as well as it is. What a happy surprise for me. But I think that's been less friction within our engagements, because we can point back to it almost, because it's like the customer knows up front, hey, this is, you get what you get, right? Like this is the parameters in which you have to work. They're going to try, right? Like customers are always going to try and just like wiggle a little bit more out. But, it's not been a super big point of contention yet. I can't say it won't always be that way, but it's not been as much of a point of contention. But our leadership team as a PS org, like they are ready to have those commercial conversations. We're trying to leave it off of our individual contributors focus on the project. If you hear these types of phrases, or if you hear, oh, we want to do this, or oh, we want to do that, that's outside of what we agreed upon within their initial implementation blueprint, then bring us into that conversation and we'll take it from there. So that way we don't have to, the masses don't have to necessarily be trained.
Yeah, eventually, as you grow, though, you'd like everybody knowing the professional services and consulting way to answer those questions and when to pitch it. And but that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen day one, and your setup and the volume coming in. But yeah, eventually, we want all the professionals to know how to be professional. So that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but that evolution is pretty normal, right? First one is, hey, the first step in playing your commercial role is doing an effective job at delivering, so they want more from you, right? And then it's spotting opportunities effectively, and then it's playing a sales support role, and then it's ultimately doing some of those conversations on your own, and that's how we would structure an improvement or a development plan around something like that. So that's a pretty normal evolution that you're going through right there. Um, I want to talk about the forward deployed engineer that's in your delivery model for a second. Is that an individual that is on your PS team today? Okay. So talk a little bit about that, because there's a big debate going on right now about where that function lives within organizations, right? And PS is a spot, and there's arguments for it because of the similarities of it. And then product is another spot that could
And
theoretically live.
sometimes it's just a PS person relabeled.
Yeah, but and so, but the metrics and the incentives and the behaviors are always different around that. So how have you guys structured that, like in terms of org structure, but then also have you put the guardrails around that role, seeing as if it's in the PS function, it's a cost of delivery rather than a cost of customer acquisition like it would if it was on the product side of the house.
Yep. So our forward deployed engineers and our PS org as a whole, our PS org, forward deployed engineers sit in the PS org. PS rolls up to our VP of customer success. Our VP of customer success rolls into our head of product. And so the debate that Anthony mentioned, does this role sit in product or PS? It sits in both in our case. And that's unique. I've not seen an org structured that way in any of my time. Everyone, if you're in PS or if you're in, I've seen PS be under CS, I've seen PS be under product, but I have never seen PS under CS under product.
And what else is under product?
So engineering is under product marketing is under product, and then product management by each of our different pillars. Yeah. So
Very traditional, except for you've added all of the post in there. That's really cool.
yeah. Oh, and support also rolls into our VP of success. So
Yeah. And is your forward deployed, did they come out of PS originally, or did they come out of engineering? I mean, by background.
yeah, from a background perspective, a lot of our FDEs came out of engineering. Our implementation managers, not so much. They're more business product consultants, just by design. So they're like a hybrid of, business consulting plus like some project management sprinkled in. And they all come from a, similar background, implementation background. But a majority of our FDEs have either been engineers at MoveWorks specifically, or they've kind of grown up within the MoveWorks organization. And so they've had that kind of hybrid role for their entire time here.
Yeah. And the forward deployed or baked into the new SKUs, and we're expecting revenue on them, or we're just okay.
Yeah. So there is revenue now with the new SKUs. Previously, that was part of the reason why we were revamping the catalog, because we had initially set the services SKUs up to be based on like a percentage of the ARR that was sold. And it turns out that does not cover the cost of engineers or implementation managers. So once I got onboarded, that was one of the big initiatives that I had, was like, how do we make this to where, I had mentioned, I think like margin wasn't super important, or like making additional revenue out of the services org wasn't important. We were very focused on customer outcomes and customer value and making sure that adoption was really sticky and, building new agents and getting all of that done. But we did, when I came aboard, I was like, we're a pretty bad loss center here. And I was like, we need to at least rectify. And so one of our goals coming into 2026 is just cost neutral. So we're not trying to make the big bucks. If we make a couple extra, that's great, from a revenue perspective, but we really are focused truly on outcomes and value and product adoption.
So when you went through your portfolio cleanup, reconciliation, right? How did you, what was some of the criteria and the process that you used to go from 25 down to 8? Were you looking at profitability or at least break even of delivery on some of those things? Were you looking on the ability for it to drive outcome and stickiness of the product? Like what were some of the leading, I'm sure you looked at all of those things, but what were some of the leading drivers that would allow you to say, hey, we're not going to do this one anymore, and we're going to sunset that particular offer that we used to have?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really, the biggest thing was the cost, just because I knew that that was going to end up being a metric that we looked at moving forward. And so I did a lot of Excel spreadsheeting, and I took all of our cost data for averages across the globe, because we are a global team. So I took averages, I priced everything out. I figured out what's our blended rate with the managers and everybody in our organization. Um, Took all of that data, all that detail, and figured out, okay, what's the break even hourly rate, right? That you need to meet. And then I backed in from that point. I took data out of our PSA tool Rocket Lane. I looked at how many hours we were generally spending on implementations and on like our evolving, our recurring packages. Everything that we had, I just kind of took all of those data points into consideration, but it was primarily cost of, what does our team actually cost? What are we paying our team? And are we able to cover that with, you know, based on an hourly rate that's blended? And then secondarily, looking at the actual hours that we're spending, so that we could then understand, okay, how much do we need to charge at minimum just to cover the cost, the base cost of um, delivery. And so that has worked well. We are trending positively, and we're making money, which is great. So we're margin positive right now from over the last 6 months, just from the acquisition time and starting to sell um, the new offerings. And it's nice. It's good that we've got that already. We're already in the green. So better than I expected. We baked in a lot of margin too. So we baked, there was a standard, I think, when we built the SKUs. I think they said they always uplift by like 20% or something like that, just because sales teams are going to discount. There's going to be a lot of back and forth on pricing. And so they always build in like a little bit of buffer anyways. Yeah, everything is trending positively, at least at this juncture.
So that's faster than you expected. That's faster than most organizations experience with something like that, because of all the moving pieces, right? Customer adoption of things, all the internal finance and legal and all of those different components coming together to make sure that they approve of all the pieces, getting sales enabled and delivery enabled and all these different things. So great. I mean, the fact that you're already seeing so many results of it 4 months, 6 months into that journey is fantastic. What lessons would you have for others that are looking at going through a similar kind of journey? Whether that journey is just portfolio reconciliation and cleanup, or trying to find a way to get to cost neutrality, or whatever, that you attribute this to, like, okay, this went really quick, and in hindsight, it's probably because we did these couple of things or did it in a certain order or whatever. Do you have anything that jumps to mind there?
Yeah. So I would say if you're looking to get to cost neutrality, do a really good look at your PSA data. Like, that is my bread and butter from an operations perspective.
How was that data when you start? Clean, like good source of truth, at least when you started.
The data when I started was not the best, and I
Okay,
can say that with openness because the team knows now, because they were like,
because now it is good, and they know what the
now
difference
it's
is.
good. And they know what good looks like now. And you know what? They did not know. They did not have an operations arm at all for the professional services org. So I'm the first professional services operations person um, in company history. And so they were like, wow, like you fixed this pretty quick. And I was like, well, yeah,
I do this.
this is right. I'm like, this is why I got hired. So I'm glad that I'm meeting your standards, exceeding hopefully. But yes, the data was not great when I first joined, and we had a lot of project cleanup to do. Had a lot of open projects that were actually fired. Like we should not have had them open, and time tracking. There was no compliance around that, so it took me some time. So I had completely done. I had to do all that cleanup first. So that's maybe a first point of advice. Make sure your data is good because you want to be making data driven decisions. You don't want to just be putting your finger in the air and being like, oh, I think this is what we should do, or just trying to, figure it out. I'm very much a proponent of data driven decisions and making it make sense. And the data doesn't have to be perfect, to be honest. Like, as an operations person, you should be able to directionally know whether something will or will not work.
Yeah, in fact, probably trying to get it to perfect does more harm than good because at some point you can be directionally correct, and if you seek perfection forever on something like this with a bunch of humans involved and having to participate in it, you're never going to get to step two.
Absolutely.
Well, you're going to get new data anyway, right? Yeah, yeah. You do 10 more and you change your pricing. Yeah.
Yep.
Not
Exactly.
down. By the way, you don't change your pricing down. You find out that you're making too much money, you just live with it.
You just live with your too much money. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so yeah. So I would say make data driven decisions. Do not seek perfection in any of that data because professional services organizations are putting data in manually for the most part. I don't know. There's some of us might be trying to use some AI for some of it, but for the most part, it's manual entry, and you got to get that compliance out there first. So I took everything from October 2025 through January 2026. That was like my clean data set because October or the end of September is when I rolled out. Here's when you need to track your time by. If you don't put your time in, I'm going to lock it. You're not going to be able to put anything in. It's going to look bad for you. And I'm going to tell your managers. So,
With love.
yeah, with love, Kristen. Yes. I love to joke. Like I put out a Slack every week mostly, but mostly at the month end. Like I'll put in a little GIF and be like, it's your favorite time tracking police officer. Like everybody get your time in for the month because I'm gonna lock it and you're not gonna be able to do it. You're gonna come back and ask me and I'm gonna say no. So yes, they love that. I know they're all just waiting with bated breath for my monthly Slack that they calling them out. So yeah, that's a big key, I think. Data driven decisions, look at that data first, understand what time you're spending, understand where you got a lot of scope creep because that PSA data should tell you, hey, this person signed up for this stuff in this box and we went way out of the box here and we spent way more hours than we needed to. And here are the reasons why. That data is really, really valuable when you're trying to go back and look at your packages because it also helps to tell you what doesn't work and what is costing you a lot of money in the grand scheme of margin. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And then I had go to market at the forefront of my mind, understanding the sales cycle and understanding like how salespeople work and how salespeople think is really valuable. So I came from sales operations previous to being in professional services operations. I was also a salesperson myself in previous lives. And so having an understanding of like what motivates a salesperson, understanding that structure and what they're looking for. To your point earlier, they're very trainable. Like our sales teams are extremely trainable. If you tell them what to do, they will generally do it with very little pushback, at least in my experience. And so understanding what your go-to-market motion looks like and what you're trying to achieve before you really start pulling things apart is really important. So ultimately, data, look at your data, see if you can get your data a little bit cleaner before you do this. If like that there's dirty data and discrepancies that just have been lurking around, like try and clean it up, get some compliance in place with your team, and then focus on what your go-to-market end goal is. Like, are you trying to make a certain dollar amount of revenue? If you know that up front, that you have a revenue target sitting ahead of you, when you do your cleanup and when you do your catalog revision and reconciliation, price it higher, always higher, to Dean's point. Never lower, always higher.
Never lower.
Right. Because and the reality is salespeople are going to discount it probably. And you may or may not have any control over that, depending on your organization.
And there's value in what we deliver, right? So even if we're not trying to be a profit center or make up a huge percentage of the margin for the business, there's value in what we deliver. And our sales team needs to understand that. Our PS team needs to remember that always by having a dollar value attached. And our customers need to know that. So even if it gets discounted or reduced or everything is better if everybody sees and appreciates that there's real value around it rather than some artificially low value or free tied to it. I think that mindset makes a big difference, because even though we know that, we kind of lose sight of it, and the PS team gets treated differently by customers and internally if we're seen as just the giveaway center.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a very real perception problem. So I agree with that totally.
Wonderful. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for hopping on and sharing all this stuff with us, and your perspectives, and congratulations on the great work so far. And I'm sure more successes to come here in the coming months as you guys work through the end of 2026. But yeah, looking forward to having another conversation with you and checking in and seeing how everything's going.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time and insights.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that great conversation with Kristen as much as we did, and lots to take away from all of that. Like Kristen's organization and many others, if your organization is dealing with trying to get more of the commercial mindset into your consultants and your PS team, check out at consultantsway.com our commercial role of the consultant bundle and all the different roles that a consultant and a PS team needs to play in order to drive commercial outcomes for their business. We're working with a lot of organizations on that every day. If you want to hear more about more conversations that we're having, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're releasing episodes every Monday. We've got a bunch of good ones in the hopper right now, and so looking forward to the next handful of months throughout this summer of great conversations with great new guests. If you have any suggestions on future guests for us, you can reach out to Dean or I on our LinkedIn pages, or you can always email the show with guest suggestions or just overall recommendations or questions at podcast@consultantsway.com. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.